Hey everyone, this is Angel coming to you. I wanted to do this video to share one of my most precious moments in life, and that was the birth of my son. But there's a little twist with his birth. He spent 3 months in the NICU. So I wanted to share my story, my NICU story with you. So my son was born at 28 weeks, right? He was born at 1 pound and 11 ounces. He was so tiny. He looked like a little shrimp. He was the size of my hand with legs and arms and a head attached to it. So when he came, he definitely came as a surprise to us, but it was a surprise to me. It was a surprise to me because there were no signs that he was coming. So I remember the Monday before he came, I ran light errands with a lady that I consider one of my moms, and we just kind of hung out and had a good time that day. And that night I started feeling a little funny, but I was like, maybe I just have, like, something's just going on. Maybe I ate something a little funny. So on that Tuesday, I kind of laid around the house, didn't really do too much, and around that evening I took a nap, and when I woke up I started feeling really weird. And my mom told me that I called her, and then I called her and I said something, and then I called her back and I said the same thing. And she said that right then she should have taken a note that something was off, but neither one of us knew anything, because for all we knew, literally the week before, I had a doctor's appointment, and my doctor was like, "You're doing great. The baby's growing. There's no signs of any issues. You just keep doing what you're doing." So that Tuesday, I started feeling really funny, and then I started getting really sharp pains in my lower stomach. So I called my dad, and my dad was like, you need to call your doctor. Well, I called my husband first. My husband was like, "I'm coming home." He was at work. So I called my dad, and my dad was like, "You need to call your doctor and just see what your doctor says and try not to panic." My dad is very calm. He's an introvert, and he just knows how to make situations mellow. My mom is an extrovert, and she will just make everything super extreme. So it was really good that I called my dad. So I called my doctor. He wasn't in, but his, I guess, colleague was in, and basically said, like, "I'm looking at your charts. Everything's okay. I'm sure there's nothing to be alarmed. Nothing should alarm you. If you're feeling really bad, you can come in." And then he was like, "You know what? Just come in anyway, just to be safe." So my husband was rushing home from work. He pulled up, we jumped into his truck, and it was the worst ride of my life. I felt every bump. I felt every pothole in the ground. I felt everything. So when I got to the doctor, he kind of looked at me and he was like, "You're in pain?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm in pain." And he checked me and was like, "Oh, let's get some stirrups. There's a baby on the way." And I was like, "What? What do you mean? Wait. So in less than about 15 to 20 minutes, English was in the world. My son's name is English Lemire Hurst, and he showed up at 1 pound 11 ounces on August the 4th of 2015. It was the craziest night of my life, because I went from literally thinking that the doctor's just going to tell me everything's good and send me back home, to having a baby in the little baby tray, looking at him cry, and not knowing what happened. So immediately they put me on some meds to kind of calm me down, and to get my blood pressure regulated, because the meds shot my blood pressure up. like the painkillers, because y'all, I had this amazing pregnancy planned out where I was just gonna sit back, lay back, and do nothing, maybe 3 good pushes, and my baby's here. I was not able to do any of that because English came so fast. So they gave me pain meds after all of the pushing and stuff, and then that blew my blood pressure up. So I had to stay in this room. They had to monitor my blood pressure for like 6 hours, and then I was able to get a room, and then the next morning go see my baby. So the long story of all of this is the NICU experience. Our NICU experience was actually amazing because we were in a wonderful hospital with wonderful NICU doctors and nurses that really cared for the little tiny babies, and English was one of the tiniest in the NICU at the time. Like I said before, he weighed 1 pound 11 ounces. He was so tiny that he could fit in the palm of our hand. His cry sounded like a little mouse whimper. He was so tiny. He had the thickest eyebrows. He was hairy because he wasn't fully developed. But a lot of his internal organs were developing or had already developed fine. So honestly, he was a very, very healthy little tiny preemie. So the first night, I was still kind of coming off meds, but everybody was just kind of talking to me, and you know, people were stopping through my room, so it was distracting me. But as everything started to slow down, it started to hit me that my baby's here, but I'm not with him, and I can't even touch him, I can't rub him. So that really bothered me the first night. I got through the first night because I was so wore out, and so the next morning I jumped up, did as much as I could, got washed up, and they took me over to see my baby. No, that's not right. It was like 2 days that I had to stay in the hospital to recover, and then they took me over to see my baby. So those couple of days was agony. The only connection that I had with my baby was a NICU nurse calling me, and me being able to call the NICU to see his progress and see what was going on and how he was doing. The second night that they released me, I went straight over to the NICU because they took him to a different hospital that had a little bit more resources for how small he was. So when I saw him, my mom says that she feels like I went into shock when I saw him. I think I may have went into shock, but I think I was more so in shock as to how small he was. I was in and out when he came into the world, so I saw them hold him up, but it was different when I saw him laying in the little incubator. He was so tiny, but I had this feeling from that moment that I laid my eyes on him that he was gonna kind of fight through. I saw it on him, like he was a fighter. He was feisty and kind of moving around, even in the NICU, even in the little incubator. So that first day I stayed the whole day, of course, what a mother would do. I stayed the whole entire day there, and that was basically my regimen for the next 3 months. But for the next 2 weeks, I just went up there every day. I would go kind of get myself together. They had to wheel me up there, and I would sit with him, I would read with him. I wasn't able to touch him for a little while, and then after about 2 weeks, I could touch him. After I was able to touch him, then eventually they let me, reach my hand in there and rub his head and rub his cheek. And then after that, I was able to change his diaper. So there was a lot of encouraging days and wonderful days. It got to the point where he was so tiny, but he would smile when he would hear me and his dad's voice. He would smile when he would hear his grandma's voice. He'd smile when he'd hear his godparents' voice. But then there was really rough days too. So one of the rough days was something happened with my milk, and they felt like, I don't really remember what they said happened to it, but somehow he got sick, like his intestines swole up, and he wasn't able to like digest the milk. And I panicked because I walked in the NICU one day, normal, thinking everything was going to be normal, thinking I was just going to see him moving around because my baby was so active. He would just kick his legs and move his arms around and move his head around and scoot down to the bottom of the bed. If you read to him, he would be so interactive with your voice. If you sung to him, he would smile. So this day, I come bopping in the hospital like normal. Got my little stack of books and, you know, my little lunch, and I'm just ready to spend the day with my baby. And I walked up to his bed, and I didn't recognize him. I didn't recognize him. So I went to the front of the incubator to see the name tag, because I was like, well, maybe they moved him, and it was his name tag. So he had swollen up. He had swollen up and like filled out a whole lot, but it didn't look like a healthy fill out. He was swole and he got really dark skin. And so I went rushing to one of the nurses, like, what happened? So they met me and they told me that something had happened to his intestines and that he had got really sick overnight, and that they were just monitoring him because they weren't sure if he was going to make it. So that was a hard day. I was just down the whole day. I stayed there the whole day. The way the NICU was set up, where we were living at the time, it was open from like 9 to 9 or something like that, and then it closed and it opened back up at like midnight. Or no, it was like 9 to 6, and then it closed, and then it opened back up from 6 to 9 the next morning. So I stayed there up until they closed, and I was just so terrified. I was just like, what is going to happen to my baby? But it was always this inner feeling like he was going to be okay. But those times did try and test my innate feeling that he was going to be fine, because in the moment he did not look fine. He was sick. But he pulled through in about 2 days. And then the next hurdle that we came across was his breathing. So he wasn't able to eat, breathe, and swallow at the same time. And that took it didn't take a very long time, but it took a couple weeks for him to actually get the art of eating, and to the point that they had to get a therapist to come in and kind of like show me how to hold the bottle and show me how to encourage him to breathe and swallow. And it was so difficult. I would get so frustrated some days because something so simple that I just know how to do naturally, like my baby was really having trouble with it, and it was causing him to choke. It was causing his oxygen levels to go down, and then this machine would like beep so loud in the NICU. And so it was just really difficult. That was a difficult time because I just wanted him to get it, and he wouldn't get it. But one day, just magically, he got it. He just started doing it. And so it wasn't magically, it was the grace of God. It was God who gave him the ability to do it. And so he was just growing so fast, and he was becoming more mobile, and he was just so attentive, and he knew everyone's voice when they walked in. And there was so many people that were in our corner that was there to support us and visit him. We were probably one of the only families in the NICU that English had a visitor around the clock. And my nurses would be so impressed with my family because there were kids in there, and I wish it was by law that we couldn't, but I wish I could just go rock each baby when I would go to the NICU, because it was so many babies whose families did not come to visit them. And English had somebody round the clock. Round the clock, somebody was by his bed talking to him, reading to him. And then eventually we were able to do skin-to-skin contact, where I could take him out of the incubator and lay him on my chest, and that skin-to-skin contact, that blood flow and that body heat would actually promote his growth as well. So once we was able to do that, he took off growing. So He got to about 4 pounds in about 6, 7 weeks. And then after the breathing, with the food, then we had to work on his oxygen, because his oxygen levels would just drop. Like if he fell asleep, if he became a little more inactive and he just wanted to lay and rest, his oxygen level would just decrease. And that can't happen at home alone. I'm telling nurses, like, oh no, we're going to have to fix this, because I'm not taking this baby home and his oxygen is going up and down. So the last maybe 3-4 weeks was them monitoring his oxygen levels to make sure that he was getting enough oxygen to the brain so that, you know, he could function properly. So it was a long 3 months. It was a hard battle. Me and my husband were like tag teaming. He would go on his lunch break and sit with English and talk and sing and pray and read with him. And then I was not working at the time, because that just happened so abruptly. So I would go down every day. That was my 9 to 5, going to sit with English, sing, pray, talk to him, read to him. And it was nice where we just really felt like, no, we can't take no more of this. But it was always somebody in our corner. Somebody would bring us food at the right time. Somebody would bring us gas money at the right time. Somebody would just come and visit and text and be like, hey, I'm up here with English right now. And it would give us a little break. So we had such a good support system in our corner. And emotionally, it was rough for me. Number one, because I was my baby. I was my baby. And I was so upset. I remember the first night that I was in the hospital bed. Everybody came to see me and LaRon that night because English just showed up. And we put his picture up on Facebook, and it got so many hits like, what happened? We were getting all these inboxes like, what happened? Where y'all at? So we had a lot of people come and visit us. And so it was pretty hectic and busy the night that English came. But when it died down and everyone left, it was just me, LaRon, and my emotions. And I broke down because I'm like, I can't even rub my baby's head or, you know, hold his hand or rub his back or feed him. And so the NICU really did mess with my milk, because I wasn't able to, you know, have him latch on that night and just be able to have him eat for me. So that was difficult, trying to produce milk without my baby around. But of course I got a pump, and I did as much as I could. I think I breastfed English for the first 4 months, maybe four to 6 months. I breastfed him, little more, maybe like 6-7 months, and then he switched over to formula. My emotions were all over the place. Number one, because I felt like I had done something wrong. Like I felt like this is my fault that he's here this early, and I can't retract my steps to see what I did wrong, because my last appointment, my doctor told me everything was great. Everything was fine. Nothing was wrong. Like, you just keep doing what you're doing. So we go from that, this great report where I feel like I'm doing great, to my baby being here early and risking, you know, not making it. Even though he came out decent, he still was 28 weeks, you know. And so you just could always hear that undertone of like, in case he doesn't make it. And me and my husband had already battled having miscarriages. So I'm like, Lord, I don't know if I can take this, because, you know, this is finally happening for us. We were pregnant for 5 months before we even told anyone. We told a few people, but before we let a lot of people know, because we had miscarried in the past several times. So it's like, you know, I don't even want to share that I'm pregnant yet. So once we got past that like second trimester hurdle, I was like, oh snap, this is really happening. Like, I need to get prepared. A baby's really coming. So when he showed up so early, you know, I was a little discouraged, because I'm thinking in my mind, like, is this about to be a repeat again? You know, I thought we were gaining some ground here, and I thought that, you know, we were really going to actually have a baby because we were praying and we wanted a baby. So, you know, the negative energy and the negative thoughts did try to attack me, but the support that I got from LaRon, the support that I got from just my family, my mom, my dad, my brother, all my family, my church family, it's like that stuff wouldn't even let those negative thoughts penetrate. Before a negative thought could really set in and backtrack me, I'd get a text, or I'd get a call, or my mom would show up, or Miss Mary from my church would show up, and his godmom would show up, and I'm like, it wouldn't even give me time to really, you know, sit in the negativity that I was feeling and that was trying to hold on to me. So it was rough, but it was a blessing because it conditioned me to, you know how to sit and pray and, I don't know, like, hear God's voice in a really, really huge storm. That was a big storm for me and LaRon. And I remember when we first got married, literally first getting married, having no money, like threatening to be evicted out of our first apartment. We were thinking, we don't go through nothing. We was going through stuff then. And we were just so young and naive and ready to take on the world. We didn't even notice that we were struggling then. But we were just like, we don't go through a lot, you know. That's great, you know. We don't have this testimony where we've been through so much. When in reality, we have been through a lot. My husband lost his father. We had been through several miscarriages. Like, it was a lot that had taken place, but we always had such a positive outlook on life. We just saw everything so much differently. So when this happened, it was like, boom, like, it was a really heavy load that fell on our shoulders. And it was some days that I just wanted to get in the car and just drive away. I did. It was times where I wanted to just get on a plane and go somewhere, and I knew that I couldn't because my baby was in the NICU. So there is one funny story. So our baby was in the NICU, and he was scheduled to get out. So he was born August the 4th. His due date was October, like the 23rd or something like that. So 27th, I can't remember. So he wound up being scheduled to get out of the NICU around that time. So me and my husband was like, well, we have a good support system. My mom is here, my dad's here, my brother's here, his godmom's here, Miss Mary's here, like all the people that we really trusted were here. So we said, well, we'll go to Florida. We'll just leave and like go hang for a little bit, and let's do some music. We're both artists. We both are recording artists. So we're like, let's do some music, get some music under our belt, and kind of like get back in the game a little bit. Let's go for just the weekend, and then we're going to come back, and hopefully we'll be in time for English to get out of the hospital. That was just real quick. We're just going to get out of town real quick, come right back. We go out of town, a hurricane hits our hometown, knocks the power out, stops all of the water supply. So they are collecting water bottles and everything, and I am losing it because I am 2 states away, and the news is making it seem like it's just a desolate place. There's no water, there's no food. Like, the news just stretched that thing and made it look like, you know, it was bad. So I couldn't get into the hospital the first couple of times I called. So I was hyperventilating because I'm like, my baby's not eating. He has to have water in order to drink his milk. And they need electricity so that my milk doesn't spoil. So my baby's going to go hungry. And he's in the NICU so that he can grow, so that he can go home. So I am blowing up that hospital. So finally a nurse answers, and she's just so calm. And I'm like, hello, hello, hello. Okay, I'm English's mom. What do I need to do? My mom can't get up there to get any supplies there. And I know that y'all don't have electricity, and I know that y'all don't have water. So what do I need to do? And she was like, you don't have to do nothing. English is fine. He's right here. He's doing good. He just ate. And I'm like, how? Because y'all don't have water. So it was so funny. She was just like, girl, calm down. We have water. Like, the hospital has water. We have lights because we have backup generators. English is doing fine. I'm literally looking at him. He's fine. So I had to calm down. Then, so I would call every day. Then on the way home, because at this point I'm like, I just need to get back home. They closed down all the major highways leading back to our house. So we have to stay where we are for an extra 2 days. I am through. I need to get back to my baby. This was a bad idea. I'm just going through all these emotions like, what a stupid idea to skip out, leave town, leave my baby in the NICU, and a hurricane hits. But long story short, he was fine. My mom and my dad was going up there. All of our loved ones was going up there to see him. And we made it back in no time. And within that next week or so, he was able to get in his car seat, pass the car seat test, and he came home. Now, this is funny too. So the night before we brought English home, we had to do a night over. Like, we had to stay a night over in the NICU, but in a hospital room. And basically what it was like a practice round. So for any mishaps, if there was any emergencies, if English stopped breathing, like they let us stay. It was just one night. They let us stay so that they can basically show us what to do in any emergencies outside of just telling us. And then that next night we were able to take him home. So that night we stayed. He stayed in our room. I literally did not sleep. I don't think at all. I didn't sleep at all for that whole 3 months, but I didn't sleep at all. And it was great. He was fine. So the next day they let us bring him home. And so that night, so we had a dog at the time, Cody. Cody was our first son. And we had already explained to Cody, like, you're going to be a big brother, blah, 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 blah. But we didn't know that English was going to come so early. So the doctor had already kind of prepared us, like, you may need to find another home for your dog or find a better setup for your dog if you're going to keep him, because you don't know if your son is going to have severe allergies. And if so, if that will mess up his breathing pattern in any way, because, you know, he's not a normal sized baby. So Cody went to go stay with my brother for a few weeks. Well, he's still living there to this day, 3 years later. He loves my brother's house. So the night that we brought him home, Cody was just so confused, like, what is going on? Who's this new person? Where have y'all been? Like, Cody didn't know what to do. But that night, the funniest thing happened. It's not even funny anymore, but it was funny to me when it happened. So English was in his bassinet. Some good friends of ours got us a bassinet. And so he was laying in his bassinet, and I was so delirious because I had been up, but me and my husband, we had been up every night, going to the NICU, staying overnight when we could, if you know, LaRon didn't have to work. And then we would be there all day. Then the night that we stayed the night, I stayed up all night. Like, I could not go to sleep without just staring at my son or making sure he was okay. So the first night he was in our house, I was so nervous because he was in the bassinet, and I feel like sometimes he would roll over and the bassinet would move, and I would just jump up out of nowhere. So I had fell asleep for like 5 minutes, and when I woke up, I looked in the bassinet. This is not even funny anymore, but I thought his head was where his butt was, but his butt was where so I thought his butt was his head. This is so weird. I was so delirious that I like freaked out, jumped when it turned the light on, and was like, oh, that's how sleepy I was. Like, I didn't know. My baby looked so weird because his butt was there, but I was like, is that his head? So we were delirious like that for months. months. English came home at almost 5 pounds, like right at 5 pounds, so 4 pounds and some change, and basically right at 5 pounds. But he was so healthy, and he was so, vibrant and just moving around and smiling and looking around that they just was like, he's ready to go. But he just fit right in when he got home. Other than that, other than the scare of him coming, the couple of nights that, he had some issues. I remember one night in the NICU, he kept taking his IV out because he did not like that thing, and they had to put it in my baby head. And it was so hard. They were like, "Ma'am, Miss Hurst, can you just step out the room? Like, can you just step out?" Because I was just horrified. It was sticking my baby in the head with an IV. But he was such a trooper, and he just pushed right on through. And he looked so forward to hearing our voice and just hearing us sing to him and read to him. And to this day, he loves books. Like, every night he wants to read a book. The journey when he got home was pretty stressful, but once again, I had a really good support system. So his godmother, she had her baby at like 28, 30 weeks, something like that. And so she knew everything that I was going through. So when I would have a question, she'd be the first person I called. I blew up her phone for like the first 4-5 months. So that's definitely something I would encourage you to do. If you're in this boat right now and you have a baby in the NICU, find you a resource of somebody who's been through what you've been through already. A lot of the hospitals actually have like clubs. Like, I had joined a club while I was there where the mothers of the NICU would get together every 4th Monday or something like that. And we would eat pizza and just talk to each other and exchange stories with each other. And it's a little nerve-wracking at first because you don't know where everybody is, but it's actually really encouraging because you'll hear somebody say, "Oh, my baby went through that. He's fine. That ain't nothing." While you're in, sitting by your baby's NICU bed, literally hyperventilating every night because the oxygen level is going down a little bit. And I remember my first club night that I went to, this lady, she had twins, and she was able to bring one of her twins home, but one of them had to stay in the NICU and was in there for some months. And it was something that I said, I think maybe about the oxygen level, and I was so upset about it because it kept happening. And she was like, "What? Oh, that's normal. Girl, he'll be over that in give it another 2 weeks. He'll be over that." And she was right. In another 2 weeks, his lungs were so strong that they took him off the oxygen machine. So I say all that to say, if you find yourself in my shoes, or if you're in my shoes as far as having to have a baby in the NICU for a certain amount of time, because that is scary, connect with people who have been where you've been, because there's so many women out there who have had babies prematurely. And it's so funny, you don't know who's walked the path when you've never walked it. But once you walk it, it's like it's so many people who have that same common story as you. So find some encouragement that way by either connecting with women in the NICU or connecting with a community, whether it's on Facebook or a neighbor or a church member or a coworker who's been through the same thing as you. So you can share your concerns with them, and they'll be able to kind of enlighten you on what they went through. That was really helpful for me. So, needless to say, English is 3 now. He's a very healthy child. He's funny. He's outgoing. He's vibrant. He's very particular when he meets people at first. He's not just going to just take to you. He has to study you and read you hard. But once he gets to know you, he just warms up. He's a really, really bright kid. He's super smart. I would say also to beware that NICU babies are strong and intelligent. English is really, 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 really strong, and he's really, really smart, to the point that sometimes it's like, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for you to be this smart. The things that comes out of his mouth and the things that he says are so hilarious. He's so quick on his feet. He thinks quick. He knows how to come back quick. And it's just really funny to watch. He jokes around. If he gets around his dad is an extra extrovert. So when he gets around his dad, it's a show. He's hilarious. An issue that comes up a lot with NICU babies is daycare. I chose to keep my son home for a year. I did not want to risk him getting a cold every month, or, you know, being open to catching anything and ending up back in the hospital. And I did see that a lot in the NICU. A lot of times in the NICU, a baby would leave and then they would come back because their parents put them in daycare too early. So, I'm sorry, y'all. My baby was in the NICU for 3 months. When he got out, I stayed home with him for a full year. And then after that year, I took him to a home daycare where one of my mother-in-law's friends kept him for a few months. And she had maybe like two babies that she kept. So it just cut down on him getting sick or, you know, just being open to any type of illness. So I suggest, based on my experience, that when you have a baby fresh out of the NICU, don't rush back to work. Now, there are times where you cannot help it. You may not have that support, and you just have to take them to daycare. If so, what I would suggest is that the state offers a whole lot of assistance when your baby is underweight. Most states will offer a lot of assistance because they know that you need the extra help because you have to pay extra attention to your child. So depending on what state you're in, you can go to your local WIC office, or you can go just to your local government office and your state government office, and you can just basically say, hey, usually they come to you. You don't even have to go to them. They're going to come to you in the hospital, and they're going to show you all the things that they have to offer based on whatever the state, you know, has. For me, the state that I was in, I was eligible to get funding. So I got a certain amount of money every month for English. I was eligible for a free car seat. But I had waited too late for that. I was eligible for therapy for him, and I was not one of those moms who wanted to, you know, just trick myself into thinking that my baby wasn't gonna, you know, there weren't maybe gonna be delays or physical things that were gonna kind of set him back. I was open to all of that. Now, some parents may be in denial and may not want to think that and may want to, you know, think positive and think the best. What I suggest is that you take every program that they offer you. English was in every therapy session that they offered. He was in everything that they offered, I signed English up for. So he was doing physical therapy, he was doing cognitive therapy, he was doing speech therapy, he was doing all of that as soon as he got home. I signed him up. So that was very helpful because he was able to get really, really fun toys that were developed, you know, able to help him develop. So he learned his colors really quick. He learned his numbers really fast. He had great therapists. Oh my gosh, they were amazing. They came and helped him walk because he was having trouble learning how to walk. And so he started walking at about 13 months, like a little bit after he turned 1. And he was 3 months behind, so he was scheduled they were expecting him not to be able to walk until about 15 months. And he started literally right when he turned 1, maybe like 2-3 weeks after he started walking. Or, you know, getting to that walking. He was falling and stuff, but he was walking. He was crawling quicker than what they expected. He was responding to his name, responding to different commands. He was eating good. So that therapy really helped. And I suggest that. Don't be that parent that just thinks you can take on the world and do it all by yourself and I don't want my son to be in therapy because I don't want people to think da 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 da. No. I don't want my child to be in this. I don't want my child to be in that. Put your child in everything that they offer because it will help them in the long run. So yeah, like, that's my story. That's my NICU story. I'm so grateful for the journey and the opportunity to have English as a son. He's so fun. He's so funny. He's so gifted. But those first, that whole first year was a doozy. It was a doozy. It really was. It was so unexpected. I remember the night he came, well, maybe not the night he came. So he came on a Tuesday. I stayed in the hospital Wednesday and Thursday. That Friday, his godmama showed up. Like, what happened? She had like a car seat, a stroller. She was like, we got to start now because the baby here. And it was so funny. English was just the laugh of my family because he was at his own baby shower. Because my baby shower was scheduled for the middle of September, October. And so they had to move it. And so he was the premiere. He was the star at his own baby shower because he came so early. So it was a great experience. And I think my favorite part, other than having English, is being able to talk to other ladies who had their baby early. And it ain't easy. It's not easy. And sometimes people can be a little insensitive because they've never been on that path, so they don't know what to say. And they'll say stuff to you, and you're not realizing that it offended the mess out of you. But you have to just be the bigger person and either, let it roll off your back or say, but some people just don't know. And you can't even fault them because they just don't know. They don't know the emotions that you're going through. I know one of my biggest hiccups when this all happened was that I was just really trying to retract my steps and figure out what I did wrong. In my mind, it was just, I did something wrong. I did it wrong. So if anybody came to me any type of way, trying to tell me something about, now I was very receptive to advice, but if you just came to me, out of the blue, trying to tell me, what you should do, this is what you should do next time you get pregnant with your body. Like, I don't know how I got to this place. You don't either. So hush, that's what you want to say. And then when English was a little baby, he was so tiny and it was so overwhelming because so many people had so much stuff to say about, why does he have that on? He needs to put this on. Oh no, this needs to happen. No. And I'm like, oh my God, like, don't make me feel any worse. I already feel bad that he came so early. I feel like my body did this. So please don't make me feel worse than I already feel. So all my NICU moms out there, I understand. I get you. I get those moments where somebody says something and they do not understand what they said and you are about to blow up or you're about to bust out in tears because it triggers something in you and they don't even know it. Those are moments that make you stronger. So get through the moment. Don't blow up on the person. Don't, retaliate or don't break down. You just understand where they're coming from. They're coming from a place of ignorance because they don't know what you're going through. And yeah, that's it. I am so grateful that I was able to share my story with you. And if you have any feedback or any questions for me, I was the question queen. If I found out that your child had been in the NICU or that your child was preemie, I would have so many questions because I wanted to make sure I was doing it right. So if you want to ask questions, if you want to leave comments, like, share, subscribe, of course. But if you want to leave any comments, please do. You can tag me. My name is Angel Hurst on Facebook. You can message me, Angel Hurst1 on Instagram. And let's chat. Let's talk. I can give you as much knowledge as I know. I can help you find some resources with your state so that you can get, a little bit of help. They have so much free stuff and they have so much money for us NICU moms. They do. So utilize it. Figure out where your child may need it. If you are going home with equipment, if your baby's on a breathing machine, if he's on an oxygen machine, anything like that, there's tools out there where people will come to your house and they will help monitor your child. They'll do all that stuff. So you don't have to do it alone. Even if you don't have a good support system, you do not have to do it alone. So, yeah. Hit me up. I'm here for you. I have some pictures of English at the end, even though he's all over my social media. But I'll have some pictures for him at the end. He is a blessing from God, but more so him. He's a blessing, but my journey was a blessing too. Like, English was not the prize for me. I love my son, but he was not the prize for me. The prize for me was being able to get through this journey God's way and not losing it, not cracking up, not messing it up even more, and being able to share my story with so many other women and encouraging them and letting them know that, look, you can get through this and your baby's going to be okay. And so, yeah, I hope you enjoy. Bye.
Yay, you got it, English.